Mama left her red satin shoes in the middle of the road. That's what 3 eyewitnesses told the police. But the first time I remember my mother wearing red shoes was on a snowy morning in December 1962, the year I was 7 years old. I had walked into the kitchen and found her sitting at the table. No lights were on, but in that thin haze of dawn that pushed through the frostbitten window, I could see red high-heeled shoes peeking out from beneath the hem of her robe. There was no breakfast waiting and no freshly ironed school dress hanging on the basement doorknob. Mama just sat and stared out the window with empty eyes, her hands limp in her lap and her coffee cold and untouched. Well, I stood by her side and breathed in the sweet scent of lavender talcum powder that clung to the tops of her robe. "What's the matter, Mama?" Well, I waited and waited, and finally she turned from the window and looked at me. Her skin was as frail as tissue, and her voice wasn't much more than a whisper. "Cecilia Rose, I'm taking you to Georgia. I want you to see what real living is like. All the women dress so nice, and the people are kind and friendly. It's so different from how things are up here. As soon as I feel better, we'll plan a trip, just you and me." "But what about Daddy? Will he come too?" Mama squeezed her eye closed and didn't answer. She stayed sad for the rest of the winter, and just when I thought she'd never smile again, spring came. When the lilacs bloomed in great fluffy waves of violet, Mama went outside and cut bouquets for every room in the house. She painted her fingernails bright pink, fixed her hair, and slipped into a flowered print dress. Oh, from room to room she dashed, pushing back curtains and throwing open the windows. She turned up the volume on the radio, took hold of my hands, and danced me through the house. We whirled through the living room, into the dining room, and around the table. And right in the middle of a spin, Mama abruptly stopped. "Oh my gosh, we look so much alike. When did that happen? When did you start to grow up? Just look at us, Cece. I bet when you get older, people think we're sisters. Won't that be fun?" Well, she giggled, took hold of my hands, and spun me in circles till my feet came right up off the floor. She was so happy that after we finished dancing, she took me into town and bought me all sorts of new clothes and ribbons for my hair. Mama bought herself so many new pairs of shoes that the salesman laughed and said, "Mrs. Honeycutt, I believe you have more shoes than the Bolshoi Ballet." Well, neither Mama or I knew what that meant, but the salesman sure thought he was clever, and so we laughed along with him as he helped us carry our packages to the car. That spring sure was something. I'd never seen Mama so happy. Every day was a big celebration. I'd come home from school and she'd be waiting, all dressed up with a big smile on her face. She'd grab her handbag, hurry me to the car, and off we'd go to do more shopping. Then came the day when Dad arrived home from a 3-week business trip. Mom and I were sitting at the kitchen table, she with the magazine and me with the coloring book and crayons. And when my dad opened the closet door to hang up his jacket, he was almost knocked senseless when an avalanche of shoeboxes rained down on him. "Good Christ," he said, turning to look at Mama. "How much money have you been spending?" Well, when Mama didn't answer, I put down my crayon and smiled. "Daddy, we've been shopping for weeks, but everything we got was for free." "Free? What are you talking about?" Well, I nodded wisely. "Yep. All Mama had to do was show the salesman a square of plastic. He let us have whatever we wanted." Well, Cece doesn't know that her mother is sick. She just knows she loves her Mama and her Mama's a lot of fun and she takes her shopping all the time. She doesn't know, she's just a little girl. But pretty soon, Camille's illness starts to take hold and Cece knows her mother isn't well. And one of the poignant moments, which is a reflection of her life, which is further in the book, is a part where Cece realizes that her mother isn't well. And as the book unfolds, there are very sad moments, but there's also a lot of laughter and a lot of fun moments. And I don't want to ruin the book for those of you who haven't read it. But through CeCee's awareness of her mother's illness, she takes over and cares for her mother the best way she knows how. But her mother was the 1951 Vidalia Onion Queen, and every single day is pageant day. And she loves going to the Goodwill store because she's had her piece of plastic taken away from her to get whatever she can. And pretty soon, CeCee's embarrassed because this whole little town knows that her mother isn't well. And so as the book goes on, CeCee, something terrible happens, and CeCee goes to live with her great aunt, Tallulah Caldwell, in Savannah. And that's when her life goes from black and white to Technicolor. And I'm not going to say too much more about it because I know a lot of you haven't read it yet. But I hope that you're in for a treat because there's a lot of laughter in this book. And just to warn you, in the beginning, there's some sadness, but I have really tried hard and I believe succeeded in balancing that sadness, even in the beginning of the book, with some really funny moments where Camille is very much respected, even though she's ill, and she does some pretty wild and crazy things, and they are funny, even though they're sad. Now I'd like to finish off by sharing something with you. Remember the ad I told you about that the man called and said he loved? It was his favorite. This ad was printed in the Cincinnati Enquirer 2 years before I made my big decision to leave interior design and write. I had purchased a desk for the store. I got a little wild one day. Oh, was it expensive and grand. It had ormolu, it had dolphin bases, it had this hand-tooled top with gold leaf on it, and it was a fortune. And I thought, oh, I'm going to end up owning this desk if I don't really write a creative ad and get somebody in here to see it. It's not the kind of desk that most of us would ever have. It's just over the top. But it was beautiful. So I thought, well, be clever, write an ad, maybe somebody will come in and get it. So I decided that's what I'd do. And this is the ad that changed my life. I know it by heart, but I read it anyway. Thursday morning, rain. Trudy woke and stared at the ceiling. She knew she had to change her life. And by 10, she quit her job and ended her marriage, both via fax. At noon, she emerged from Gigi's salon as a fiery redhead, and that was the last time anyone ever saw her. But 2 years later, a mysterious writer shoots to the top of the bestseller list. Her name, she claims, is Bunny Fields. Her first royalty check went for a Riverview condo, but the second check, it went for this. The exquisitely detailed writing desk. Perfect dolphin base, perfect leather top, and perfect for mysterious writing redheads. You go, Bunny.